Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge Week 15 running back rankings. Happy evening. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. And I just want to open up by saying I am very open to criticism this week of the rankings. Let me know who you think needs to be a couple spots higher or a couple spots lower. I think, please provide an argument because I've thought about these things and I will continue to think about them going forward. So any input definitely could help. There's a lot of good options again here at the running back position. Wide receiver position, I thought running back position could go one of two ways. Basically, that it'd be really tough or really easy. A little bit of both in terms of the rankings. Really easy in the fact that I think there are quite a few good options yet. And to me, I think we're just in line for a high fantasy points scoring week. So get prepared, put your seatbelts on. And let's just go to this first tier of running backs, get that out of the way. This is going to be, I think, some chunkier tiers overall here. This is from my running back 1 through my running back 10, kicking this off with Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. I know I forgot the L, I think, in Barkley there. Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, my RB3, followed by Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chase Brown, all the way up here at RB6, Devon Achane, Josh Jacobs, Kyren Williams, Zach Charbonnet, all the way at running back 10. So these are my must-start guys. You look at those projections for Zach Charbonnet, Chase Brown. Yes, I'm looking at limited sample sizes in some of these projections. Oftentimes you can tell those guys, they do have smaller sample sizes. That definitely helps push the projections up a little bit. That's why at the beginning of the year, I always wait until we've got 3 games. But you know what? In each of these cases, we do have at least 3 games with them in this role as like the starting running back. So things are looking good, once again, across the season. They probably wouldn't be looking this good. Chase Brown, Zach Charbonnet, in these limited sample sizes, actually show up as my RB1 and 2 on the season, actually performing at a more consistently higher rate, or more consistent rate at the very least, than Saquon Barkley, who got dinged because of, 2 lower games, where in those sample sizes, Chase Brown and Zach Charbonnet haven't had those poor games yet, and hopefully, it's not coming, because we need everything that we can get out of these guys if we're playing them from this point forward. Now, I would like to point out right now, before we go into Tier 2, you can find these projections up on the website. There are links down in the descriptions to the projections for every position. They should all be active by the time that this video comes out this evening. And the website is www.theffforge.com. If you just want to type it into your search bar right now, go. So, with that, we're going to be doing loves. We're going to be doing fades, as the video title suggests. These are just like starts and sits. I'll have them highlighted in green and red as we go through, and several players that I have notes on I'll have highlighted in yellow. There's quite a bit of that, so that's why I'm trying to get through this quickly. But I do want to go back a week. Last week, my loves and my fades were terrible, and last week I gave myself just a pat on the back without going over a really good love fade from Christmas week, or the week before Christmas week, because I didn't make videos Christmas week to do that. I didn't really get too much credit. I'm just going to take that pat on the back. We're just going to call it even. I did poorly this time. I did great then. Yuck. So let's move on. Let's do better, right? And I think we can. I like my loves and fades this week. So we're going to go on to this second tier. Once again, another chunky tier. In some ways, this is good. In some ways, this is bad. I'm not sure on these things, but I do know that I like pretty much everybody in this tier quite a bit. David Montgomery, of course, you just like the consistency of him. You can trust him, Mr. Reliable. Going up against Buffalo, they have a bad run defense in multiple ways. So the team that runs the best against one of the more poor run defenses in Buffalo, you got to play Zach Charbonnet. You got to play David Montgomery. Rico Dowdle is my first love of the week. I got him all the way up here at RB12. Look at these names that you could have gotten late in drafts, could have gotten off the waiver wires, etc. All coming through for us late in the season. So hopefully you have some of these guys. Rico, the reason that we're so far up here is he's going up against Carolina. That's just such an excellent matchup, and you think of how he's played as of late. It's just been really good. So Carolina is still comfortably the best matchup for running backs in fantasy football, comfortably by like a 2-point margin. That's pretty big. And Stoutle has been a stud as of late. That's right. His name is Stoutle, folks. That's the nickname that we have come to for Rico Dowdle. I think it was just a misspeak by me, and some of the chatters enjoyed that and have been calling him Stoutle ever since. So this week, it's just one of those weeks. It fits like a glove. Rico's a must start, so I love him. That's going to bring us on to my running back 13. Did I go through these running backs? So David Montgomery, Rico Stoutle in at running back 12, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Brian Robinson Jr., Chuba Hubbard, Aaron Jones, and Tony Pollard is my running back 18 to clear up this second tier of running backs. So up to Alvin Kamara here, and I adjusted his projections to reflect his time on the field with Spencer Rattler earlier this season, so another smaller sample size type situation. But the interesting thing from this was his floor actually went up, and I didn't actually change it. It went up to 9 from 8.9 with just on the season. So he actually was getting targeted more with Spencer Rattler. His floor went up, but of course the touchdown upside under Spencer Rattler goes down. Not as good of an offense, and Alvin Kamara did have like a 4 touchdown game early on in the season without Rattler as quarterback. So the ceiling has gone down significantly in the projections, and actually I think just in general, given how heavy how much weight that game where he scored 4 touchdowns was pulling in the projections, I think maybe we get a little bit more of an accurate projection of Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara owners might agree with that. Kind of a lower ceiling, high floor type of guy for a lot of the season since early season. Week 14, then we got James Conner, Brian Robinson, Chuba Hubbard, all great matchups here. What order we put these guys in, I don't know. I have arguments for all of them to be higher than they're being put. And once again, I'll be happy to hear further arguments and, give me the negative of the guy that we're trying to push them up ahead of. That's going to bring us on to my second love of the week. We're going to get these done real quick for the loves. Aaron Jones. And I bet on Aaron Jones several times here in really good matchups. And people get concerned about it, but I'm telling you, it hasn't gone wrong for me yet when I bet on him in a good matchup. And Chicago is a near top 5 running back matchup. It's a good matchup for Aaron Jones to be successful in. So I'm pretty comfortable playing him this week. That's going to bring us on to this next tier where we've got a lot to talk about. This is my running back 19 all the way through running back 28. My final tier that we're going to be going through. And I do have like 50, no, not quite 50. So let's just quick look. Here are the guys who I'm not ranking this week. Kenneth Walker, that's why we see Charbonnet so far high up. Breece Hall, Alexander Madison, not being ranked yet. Maybe he'll be good to go. Isaac Guerendo, not ranked yet. Roschon Johnson, not being ranked. And Bucky Irving, not being ranked. So just kind of, you can see how that might have an effect on some of these rankings. So back to here, about another, 48, 46, I think that would be running backs that I have ranked currently, and you can check those out. The next tier gets really interesting. I'll try to run through that tier really quickly, actually, just out of curiosity for maybe some of your opinions on some of those rankings as well. But that's going to bring us on to this last tier here. Running back 19 is James Cook, followed by Jonathan Taylor, all the way down at running back 20, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, Najee Harris, Tyrone Tracy Jr., I think, right? Or is he a senior? Ramondre Stevenson, Braylon Allen, Patrick Taylor, and DeAndre Swift wraps this tier up at running back 28. And I could have made these tiers a little bit differently with the bottom of this tier and the top of the next tier. I will definitely admit that, so feel free to jump some tiers too with some of your suggestions. I got notes on quite a few of these guys. James Cook going up against Detroit. 100% he is a bust candidate. Detroit is great against the run. Yes, Josh Jacobs just came away with 3 or 10 touchdowns last week. I can't remember how many it was, but he was otherwise not very efficient. I do believe it's 3. That's like 18 points, right? And I think he ends up with like 24 points. So didn't do a whole lot outside of those touchdowns against Detroit. And so you think, well, that's okay. James Cook is really good in the receiving game. Yeah, he is a great receiving back, but he's not in line to cook Detroit in that game because the matter of fact is that Detroit has allowed the fewest receptions to running backs in the league. That's going to bring us on to Jonathan Taylor, my running back 20 here, going up against Denver. Denver is one of the hardest run defenses on the ground. They allow the 3rd least yards per carry to running backs at 3.8 yards per carry. They also allow the 3rd fewest touchdowns to running backs on the ground. For a running back who has the threat of a quarterback stealing rushing opportunities, which thus limits his volume, and touchdown opportunities once they get near the goal line in the red zone. On an already low touchdown opportunity type game, remember 3rd fewest touchdowns allowed to running backs here from the Denver defense, I'm a little bit concerned about Jonathan Taylor. He's going to have to break off one big gain, be highly efficient at this point in the season. I'm just not so sure that he will do either of those things to at least much of a better effect here than a back-end RB2. And you can see the projections even think more lowly of him. This is not a good matchup between the weaknesses of Jonathan Taylor and the strengths of this Denver defense. It just compounds those weaknesses, and you can feel that really heavily in these projections. I think out of these top 28, he might be the guy who projects the worst between the floor and the ceiling there, it looks like. Then we've got Rachaad White. Rachaad White going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Don't underestimate. This isn't really about the matchup here, though. I just want to point out to not underestimate the Sean Tucker factor in this game. Last week, after Bucky Irving goes down, it was pretty much a split between Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. So I am anticipating Sean Tucker coming right in and pretty much just taking the Bucky role to some extent. So I did not end up touching up the Rachaad White projections. I kind of just left them as is throughout the season, and this is what you get. And don't forget about Sean Tucker as a sleeper type of option. Definitely could end up having a big day, and we'll say we should have had him ranked higher if we don't get him, even into this tier by the end of the week. Running back 22, Isaiah Pacheco. We know from last year that Pacheco can easily be a high-end RB2. We also know that from the first couple of games this season. He began that pace to start the year. Then he gets injured, he comes back, he's highly limited in his first game back, and then last week, not so much. So that's great. For his projections, I limited his first game back from injury, where his usage was clearly limited, and this is what we get. You see some pretty nice projections. Cleveland, not the best run defense to go up against, not a great matchup, so a little bit concerned there. Otherwise, I would be higher on Isaiah Pacheco. But what I am trying to say, regardless of that, is that I feel pretty comfortable, very comfortable, really, putting him in as a back-end RB2 or even as a flex play if you are so blessed to be in that kind of situation. I feel good about the running back in Kansas City, right? That's been a pretty good role over the last several years. Then we've got Tyrone Tracy, my first fade of the week, going up against Baltimore. Last week, I liked Tyrone Tracy because I thought he would be able to find some holes against the worst run defense in the league, that being New Orleans. He was unable to find those holes, if they even existed, because something maybe I overlooked, maybe not, but I expected maybe could find some holes here. That offensive line is in shambles there in New York yet again, and that doesn't help things out. It's a tough one to bet on Tyrone Tracy this week to do better against this Baltimore run defense. The Baltimore run defense, one of the best in the league, a very tough matchup. The silver lining here, however, is that Baltimore does allow receiving backs to do their thing, and Tyrone Tracy is nothing but, if not a receiving back, I should say. Last week, Drew Lock did end up targeting him 10 times in that game. So there is some silver lining here against Baltimore. I think you can see that a little bit in the ceiling coming through. All is not done, but the floor is pretty ugly for Tyrone Tracy. And obviously, the ultimate upside when we think about touchdowns is not very high. New York Giants struggling to get into the end zone for some time now. Braylon Allen, last guy that we've got a little highlight on here. We want to take these projections for Braylon Allen with a grain of salt here. They're not only based off of only one game, which I don't like to present that kind of projection, but I also gave himself and Isaiah Davis equal shots at a touchdown. Last week, Isaiah Davis gets a touchdown. I split that up between the two of them going forward. And frankly, I'm quite confused as to why their projections turned out to be so drastically differently. We might see Isaiah Davis's projections in just a moment. You can look at them when we go through those and look at how different they are if you pause your screen for a moment. Jacksonville has allowed the second most fantasy points to the running back position, so that's a good sign for both of these running backs, but I'm not so sure that they're the second best running back matchup in the league either. Regardless, they are a good matchup for this New York Jets offense for this running game. And then we've got DeAndre Swift, my second fade of the week, coming in at my RB28 this week. And there's no doubt that Minnesota is a bottom 5 running back matchup, not a good matchup. I do not trust this offense or DeAndre Swift's consistency because, in part, we don't trust the offense, right? That goes hand in hand there. And just 3 weeks ago, Swift did struggle against this very Minnesota team to the tune of 8 fantasy points, half PPR. And that was an average of 2.3 yards per carry in that game. So not too pretty. Now let's just look at this next tier, like I teased, whatever said we might do here. Is that fully on the screen? It is. So this tier also big. Once again, I said we could break this up a little bit more, but I'm not totally comfortable breaking it up either. Sincere McCormick, I've got at the top of this tier. Travis Etienne Jr., Javonte Williams. Then we've got Sean Tucker and Isaiah Davis. You can see there the difference between the floor and the ceiling for Isaiah Davis. Once again, unsure based on last week exactly why that is so different, because I used last week's game as my projection set for each of these two. Maybe something went a little bit kooky in the projections that I screwed up on. I can't say for sure. But we're going to take those with a grain of salt, give us some sort of baseline to work with at least. We know that they're not like terrible plays, but maybe nothing too special either between the two of them. Nick Chubb, Tank Bigsby, Jaylen Warren, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill against the New York Giants. Some good upside there. Jerome Ford. That's it. Those are hopefully all the guys that you would possibly be playing this week. There it is. Those are the running back rankings for Week 15. Thank you very, very much. We kind of did end up flying through that at a great pace. So, hey, there we go. You get 5 minutes of extra recess time today, folks. All right. Peace out. I'll be back tomorrow with the tight ends and quarterbacks video in the morning. And earlier today, the wide receiver video came out, and just shortly, there should be a link on the screen that'll come up that you could click to as well to go to that wide receiver video. Thank you. Bye-bye.